Welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast, where we help mental health professionals grow their dream practices and live a life they love. We chat with successful private practitioners, business coaches, and marketing experts, bringing you tons of practice building tips. We invite you to take advantage of our private practice paperwork and our signature marketing e-course. And we have a gift for you. This is the exact methodology we use to create our six-figure private pay practices and have helped many other therapists do the same. Go to privatepracticestartup.com and on the homepage, click the button to download a free copy of your dream private practice playbook. Now on to today's episode.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. Hope everyone is doing well today. As we move on into November and the last 2 months, or finishing the last 2 months here of year 2022. How crazy is that? I don't know. These years just go by so fast and you have all these hopes and dreams of what you're going to accomplish. And then all of a sudden you're at the end of the year already. It's crazy. Well, along the path of achieving those hopes and dreams, sometimes you all might be feeling overwhelmed by building and growing a private practice. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. But before I introduce today's guest, we hope that you guys listened last week as we had Vo Schmidt talking about how to be confident when working with reactive clients. Most of our podcasts are about business building and private practice. But every once in a while, we love to step back into the clinical side of things because we are clinicians. And Vo really helped us talk about how to work with reactive clients and is a great podcast for those of you like myself who don't really love to work with reactive clients. So that was really helpful. And don't forget to listen to that. Today we have a return guest. I don't know, 5, 6, a dozen times already. Our private practice building coach, Dr. Kim Grosher. You guys probably heard of her before. And if you haven't, go back and check out some of her other podcast episodes. But today we are talking about avoiding the overwhelm of building and or growing a private practice. So who is Dr. Kim Grosher? She has a practice in New York as well as Florida. She does love to travel, even though we didn't talk about that before, but I know she enjoys traveling. She also enjoys yoga. She is a professor. And in 2022, she became a doctor. So that's very, very exciting.
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
We're happy to have you. Of course, of course. So let's kind of just start off with, I'd love to hear, well, before we do that, let's take a moment for our sponsor.
Is managing your practice stressing you out? Try Therapy Notes. It makes notes, billing, scheduling, and telehealth a whole lot easier. Check it out, and you will quickly see why Therapy Notes is the highest rated EHR on Trustpilot.com with over 1,500 verified customer reviews and an average customer rating of 4.9 and 5 stars. You'll notice the difference from the first day you sign up for a free trial. They offer live phone support 7 days a week, so when you have questions, you can quickly reach out to someone who can help, and you're never wasting your time looking for answers. If you're coming from another EHR, they make the transition really easy. Therapy Notes will import your client's demographic data free of charge during your trial, so you can get going right away. Use the promo code PPS, as in Private Practice Startup, to get 2 free months to try out Therapy Notes for free with absolutely no strings attached. And remember, telehealth is included with every subscription, absolutely free. Make 2022 the best year yet with Therapy Notes.
And why don't we start with talking about your coming into private practice and overwhelm and your story and what was that like, or how did you avoid the overwhelm?
Absolutely. So, I first started private practice back in 2011. I was in a 2-year postgraduate couples training program, and part of the program required you to see clients there. But the nice thing about it was that when you graduated the program, you could take your clients with you into your private practice. And so I had clients and they wanted to follow me, but I had no private practice. So I had to put that together. I had to put that together quickly, right? So I had a part-time private practice for up until about 2019, when I decided to leave my position at a group practice and go full-time for myself, working for myself. And so that transition was so scary. To me, it was scarier than starting the private practice because the way I started, I had clients that I was transitioning. I was working full time at a community mental health agency. So it was really just building a place for these clients to go, right? Whereas going out onto my own and trying to figure out, am I going to make enough to pay this office rent? At the time, I was renting an office in Midtown Manhattan. Am I going to make enough to cover my mortgage and the bill, and all these different aspects? Am I actually going to get clients to be able to do this? So it was very anxiety provoking, but also exhilarating. It was an exhilarating experience. And I think I was able to lean into the exhilaration because I had such a wonderful support system. So first of all, I, did coaching with you and Kate. So I literally left my job and walked right into my practice. I had my systems up and ready to go. I had my website ready to go. I knew who I was wanting to work with in my private practice. And so literally resigning from my job and then on a Friday and then starting in my private practice on a Monday. Full time.
And that's not most people's stories.
No, it's not. It's not.
Usually they're building the practice and then, Kate always talks about the field of dream mentalities, right? She had that mentality. If I build it, they will come. And that's not the case. For you, it was like they were already there. They were waiting for you to build it.
Exactly. And then to grow it, right? Because I always say, so I started my private practice when I was doing it part-time with basically 2 clients, right? 2 couples. So it's very small, still had to have things in place, but within a year it grew, and I remember when I was working part-time, I would see as many as 10 to 12 clients in addition to my full-time job. And so, but moving into full-time felt like a different beast, right? Mm-hmm. Because I used my part-time practice income to travel, to save for different events. It helped me pay for my wedding, things like that. Because my full-time job was taking care of all the major bills. But when that extra disappears and now you have the added pressure of, your business funding your life, it can be overwhelming. But like I said, I had a great support system. I had your support, Kate's support. I also did a lot of talking to people who had done it already. So many of my colleagues who had taken the leap, who were working full time in private practice and were successful at it and we're living and we're happy. And that was really important to me as constant reminders that this is possible. You can do this, and you'll be fine. My husband was also very supportive, and that helped a lot because I think a lot of times, partners, if they're not in this world or they don't quite do this work, there may be a lot of hesitancy or, their own anxiety about, can we do this? Can we afford for you to do this? And I think for my husband, it helped seeing me work at it over a number of years part-time. And then also seeing my frustration with the, not being able to really grow or move up at the group practice because there was nowhere else for me to go, and I'm somebody, I like challenges. I like to elevate. I'm like, what's the next thing? And so it was like, well, I could be doing this for myself and creating opportunities for growth and elevation in my private practice.
Awesome. Great story. And, you really focus in a lot on support, right? So the coaching and mentoring, but also the support from people who've gone before you, and then your partner and or familial support, which can always it could go one way or the other, right? Like either your partner and family are cheering you on or they're casting seeds of doubt because of their own fears, worries, anxiety. And it is hard, I think more people would be in business if there was this clear plan, like follow this, do this, by this time, you'll have this much money. If you keep doing that, then but that's just not the way it goes. So it's definitely very anxiety provoking sometimes to take the leap. What else would you say would be something of importance on, reducing the overwhelm of being in practice or growing your practice?
So I think one of the first things is working on your mindset, right? A lot of times we work with people's mindset as clinicians, but we don't often have the opportunity to examine our own. And then especially when it comes to building a business, thinking about the financials and productivity and, getting clients and things like that. And I think a lot of the fear is rooted in how we think about it. Many times we have a scarcity mindset. We're kind of going into it with there's not enough clients. Are they going to choose me? I'm not going to make enough money.
Won't be enough clients.
Yes. I'm leaving out all these people that I could be seeing, and it's coming from this place of scarcity. This not enough. I'm not enough. There's not enough. And I think working through that is the first thing to, one, have a successful practice, but also to help manage your anxiety, your fear, and the overwhelm around starting a business. I also say, like I just mentioned, surrounding yourself and talking to other people who are running successful private practices. I think that is very important. Having somebody to kind of look up to talk to as reminders, even if you can't talk to these people, maybe they're not in your circle, maybe you don't necessarily have one-to-one access to them, but looking for examples of where this is working. We often don't take into account how important that is to be able to have models of something we want or that's working so we can create our own path. I see this a lot in some of the Facebook groups, like the therapy groups. There's a mix of both, right? There are people who are sharing how they've been successful and how they achieve their goals with private practice. And then there's also a number of people who are, of course, expressing like their concern or looking for suggestions, but then there are also people that are kind of negative about it. This doesn't work. It's not working for me. Why did I do this? Blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. That's the place for that. But I think you really have to develop a filter, especially when you are starting or you're in a place where you're trying to grow or pivot. You kind of got to cancel that out.
110,000% for sure.
Yes, that's not taking you in the direction that you want to go. I often use the metaphor of playing up, right? So I played soccer up until almost 10 years ago, right? So I played soccer for a really long time. And so my coaches used to always say, play with people who are better than you, right? Play with people who are further along than you. Because yes, it's challenging, but it forces you to step up. It forces you to say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the pace of the game. This is the skill set. And you have to develop that to keep up. If you continue to play with people who don't have the skills that you have, aren't, as competitive as you are, or whatever the case may be, right? You're going to stay where you are. And I think the same thing is the case when we're building a business. You have to surround yourself with people who either share your mindset, a growth mentality, this mentality of abundance, or at least working on it the same way you are, as well as looking up to people who are already doing it and living it.
Yeah.
So that becomes the norm.
No, those are great points. Let's just take a quick moment for our sponsor.
If you're a business owner, the last thing you want to spend your time on is handling payroll, employee benefits, time off requests, and everything else that comes along with managing a team. Let Gusto take these tasks off your plate. Gusto offers all-in-one payroll and HR for growing businesses. From full-service payroll and benefits to team management tools and more, Gusto makes it easy for you to support your hardworking team all in one intuitive platform. Gusto is loved by both businesses and employees. For businesses, having everything in one place is a game changer. With Gusto, most customers are able to run payroll in 10 minutes or less. And Gusto helps with the hard stuff too, like filing payroll taxes, compliance, new state tax registration, and more. Employees love that Gusto's interface is modern, fresh, and extremely intuitive and organized. Whether your team is in person, remote, or a combination, with Gusto, keeping your team on track is easy. Join the more than 200,000 new and growing businesses that are using Gusto to build a great workplace for their employees. Right now, Gusto is offering our listeners 3 months for free at gusto.com/PPS, as in the private practice startup. Get easy payroll, benefits, HR, and a happier team. Go to gusto.com/PPS today.
Let's face it, whenever the federal government institutes new policies, it can be very confusing and overwhelming. As a therapist in private practice, you need to assure your paperwork is up to par with the legal and ethical requirements. In January 2022, the government released a new regulation for medical professionals, including therapists, called the No Surprises Act. But don't stress trying to figure out everything you need to know about the new act and requirements. We've got you covered. This is for therapists who are private pay or work with clients who choose not to use their insurance. So unless you work exclusively with insurance, it is essential to abide by this regulation. We are giving you our good faith estimate bundle for free. It includes attorney-approved customizable templates, a required website statement, a script with a video that goes step by step on how to discuss this with your clients. And don't forget to check out the podcast with our healthcare law attorney answering all your questions about the Good Faith Estimate and No Surprises Act. Download your free Good Faith Estimate bundle, a total value of $249, but you get it for free by visiting our website, privatepracticestartup.com. Look under the resources tabs and there you'll see it there. Go to privatepracticestartup.com under the resources tab. You know, some things that you hit on is mindset. And I was just having this conversation today. Some of you know that, you know, I've shifted a lot into real estate to help my partner and I grow our real estate business. And obviously all of the same stuff applies. And right now where we are at in the market is we are in a recession, right? We're about 9 to 6 months in, depending on what you think or believe. And it's, you know, it's not like it's going to change in a few months, right? So, you know, it is all talking about mindset. And for me, you know, I don't need any help having anxieties or creating my own crap. Surrounding yourself with other people, like you said, that are going to pull you up, are going to help you up, that give you a little slap in the face, like when you are going down the spiral, to like shift and get it together is very, very important. And, you know, time and time again, I always hear that overall business is the majority mindset, 80%, 75%, whatever you think or believe, and ultimately 20 to 25% strategy. But the crazy thing for me is, and I see this too with therapists, it's like, well, tell me what works for marketing. It's not one strategy, right? I always say marketing and business is like a diet. All the diets work. They're all a system. They might not work for you, but it is really getting crystal clear on your vision, on your goals, having that mindset, understanding what you like and don't like, understanding your ideal client. And really drilling down further into that. And I think, you know, one of the things, I don't know if you had mentioned it, but like foundation, knowing your numbers. I know when I got into private practice, I had been seeing about 8 to 10 clients consistently a week. And I thought, okay, that's good. All right, time to go to private practice. You know, whatever I'm doing, I figured out to have 8 to 10 clients. That's good. It really wasn't, you know, I knew where my referral sources were coming from, but I didn't have a specific duplicatable process and system. So yeah, I gave my month notice because I worked in community mental health, and my last day was November 30th. Yeah, right into the holiday season. Total panic, paying $500 in Cobra and making like $600 a week. Yeah, wow. And having a mortgage, right? Total panic. I couldn't breathe for a long time. And you know, I do believe that business is not a straight line. And for me, as I went back on a part-time basis, I found another job that paid me much more. So I worked on my practice in the meantime, and actually figured out how to market, utilizing online. And within 6 months, I was already, you know, at 6 figures, could quit my part-time, and then go back into private practice full-time. So, you know, if you are listening to this and you are in a state of overwhelm or confusion, practice is not a straight line, but I really love what Kim's saying in regards to find the people who've done it before you, you know, really dig in, buy them lunch, get coaching by them, things like that. I know for me, you know, with where we are in the real estate market, it is looking at who are my supports, who are my motivations, who's in the common language that I'm in, and how can we help and support each other? And it's leaning on people and tapping more and more into them. So, I can't say enough about what you're stressing about mindset. So I love that.
Absolutely. I also like what you're saying too about the numbers, because, I'll admit, like, it wasn't until like I was really on the cusp of leaving my full-time job, and that it really forced me to look at the numbers, and probably not even in a way that I do now, right? Because it made me nervous. I was like, in general, I paid this, and in general, like, I need to make this, and and then I can do some teaching, some adjuncting on the side to like cover this, and I know this will cover this particular bill. And, it wasn't as concrete as it is now. And that's still an evolution. So I just want to say that to people too, because I think a lot of people get anxious when we start thinking about numbers and tracking, and, you're not alone, and you can look at them, you can get support for looking at them. And also it's important to know them, but also, getting really detailed and specific about them and developing a system is something that you can do and you can get support with.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because, I joke around and say, well, we became therapists because we don't really love math, but that's not necessarily true. Some people do love numbers. And as a business owner, I know I've fallen in love with numbers. I don't like to I don't like to have to pull all the numbers and put them in. I like the numbers to be there, and I like to be able to look at the numbers, because the numbers do tell a story. And I can't tell you how often, more than not, like, you're like, well, I think this is what's happening, or I think this is what's going on in my business, or my taxes, or my this, or my that. And then you look at the numbers and you're like, oh, no, that's not, or that's not what's working, or, oh, I'm getting the majority of my referrals from Psychology Today, or, networking. And you're like, oh, but no, look at that. 60% came from, this one page on my website. So numbers are so important in the fact, and I like, Kim, that you're saying it's an evolution, is that they do tell a story and they help you predict and project where to go. And it actually makes life easier. And speaking of numbers, so we've had two amazing guests. We've had Dave Frank, who's a financial planner and advisor for therapists specifically. So we'll put the podcast in the show notes page that we did with him. And also Andrew Risen of Herd, as well as Green Oak Accounting has been amazing as well. So we'll go ahead and put those links for those podcasts in there. So if you are in a place where you're needing some support around your numbers, definitely do that, because burying your head in the sand and waiting till April 16th is never really a good plan. It's like, that's the plan for major anxiety. I mean, if you're into that, I don't know, that's fine. sometimes
anxiety,
like be pushed to the edge to make decisions. If that's you, that's okay. You work under pressure. Not me.
No. No. There's enough going on in the world that I don't know. I don't need that additional stress or anxiety. So having the systems in place, having things kind of lined up and taken care of that also has helped with like the overwhelm of building and growing a private practice, having things in order. And I know a lot of times when we talk about systems, people kind of get like, oh, systems, like it, it feels so technical. It feels so cold in a way. And if you're like me, trained as a social worker, we think of systems as like these big, like, healthcare systems and school systems and all, bureaucracies and things like that. And that's not what we're talking about. It's more of, like you're talking about, Katie, having your step-by-step, having your things structured in such a way that it's organized, that things are taken care of, that if you're tracking your money, you have maybe a day and a time that you sit down each week and look at your billing and maybe calculate how much you brought in this month, and you have some place where you document that, and then you go about your business, and then you do the same thing next week, and then maybe you have a spreadsheet where you have your expenses, and you so forth and so on. Just having a system that's organized and having places for your information that you can go to when you need to pull it.
Right. And if you don't love it or whatnot, is hire somebody, outsource it, or get an accountability partner like a financial advisor or an accountant. Those are all great things to do for sure. Any final tips? I know you have like a 5 W's or something like that you like to talk about. What is that, Kim?
Yeah. So if you are building or growing your private practice and you kind of want an idea of some of the steps, I do have 5 tips. Before I get into the 5 tips, I always say that just like building a house, first you want to have your foundation set, right? And so having that foundation means you are familiar, you know your licensing requirements for independent practice in your state as it relates to your discipline. That's the very first thing, right? Then also making sure you have reputable malpractice insurance for private practice specifically. Many of us who maybe you're working in agencies or you're working in other settings, you may think like, oh, well, they've got me covered. You need something additional for your business, for your private practice. Also check to see if there are any specific trainings or CEUs you need to take specifically for your discipline or your specialty, right? The type of practice that you're offering. I use the example of somebody that's providing supervision in their practice, whether that's your whole practice is providing supervision or that's a part of it. In many states and locales, you need an additional course to be a qualified supervisor. So making sure you have those things in place as well as your paperwork. And you already know private practice has a great paperwork package or packages, as well as looking into an electronic health record, right? So again, thinking about systems, having a place to store your information, your schedule, so forth and so on. And if you're not into electronic health records, thinking of a paper way, to track that information or ways to store that information that are ethical and legally compliant. And then for the 5 tips, I will say first is who, right? So who are you serving? So if you're starting out in private practice, or maybe you are starting to really grow it, or maybe you're making a change and you're pivoting, who do you want to serve? And I think that's very important because many times when we start practices, I hear clinicians talking about, well, I'll work with whoever comes to me, and I can work with anybody. I can work with everybody. And especially if you've worked in like a agency setting or some type of community health setting, you can work with everybody, right? You have been working with everybody. You work with whoever comes through the door. So that's wonderful. That's great. That's not what I asked you. I didn't say, who can you work with? I said, who do you want to work with?
Ooh, I love that. Plus, you highlighted something, right? Like a lot of us have had community mental health or maybe worked in a hospital or, I don't know, judicial system and, did forensic work. But in those instances, you do have the people coming to you as well, right? In private practice, I mean, unless you're taking your whole thing is insurance and you're just taking people from insurance, in private practice, you're really having to generate that who. You don't just usually have people being dropped off at your door to be clients. So, even just another kind of thought about that. And you're right. I mean, community mental health definitely promotes you can work with anybody, which I always think it was a great, base and foundation because I feel like community mental health, they just threw you in the fire and you had to kind of sink or swim. And, a lot of us had amazing training. I learned so much in community mental health, but like you said, Kim, like who do I want to work with? Who lights me up? Who do I get excited to see on my schedule or be like, oh, the next 3 hours is going to go by so fast. It's almost like fun for me because I just love these type of clients rather than, oh gosh, I have to see, the 8-year-old that has ADD and he's bouncing all over the walls and I can't even get him to sit down to do this activity or game. And it's going to be so long. It's going to feel like 3 hours, but it's 1. So that's very important. I like that.
Exactly. I love what you're saying about working in agency or hospital settings too. I appreciate it too, because to me, I always say it was like a boot camp, right? But that's also where that mindset shift comes in. This is your practice. You get to decide who you want to work with, right? And I think that's very important. And so taking that into the second tip, which is what services are you offering? Again, many people coming to private practice can probably offer a number of different services, right? Or you might be thinking, of course, I'm going to offer therapy, right? Right? But, you know, being very specific. Are you offering individual therapy? Are you offering couples therapy? Are you offering group therapy? Are you offering play therapy? Right? Do you do psychological evaluations? Do you do medication
Retreats.
management? Yep, retreats. You know, what are the thing now? VIP days, right? Intensive sessions, you know, longer than normal sessions. In couples therapy, we have marathon sessions, right? Where maybe you work with a couple for several hours at a time. So thinking about what services you want to offer and narrowing that down. Also thinking about when you are available to see clients. And this is kind of like the who, right? Like, when do you want to see clients? Right? And so, especially if you are working and transitioning into private practice, you're building your private practice up while you're working full time, thinking about when do you really want to see clients, and what your ideal schedule would look like. And narrowing that down. So when they call, you know exactly what times you have to offer instead of the other way around, where sometimes we're trying to fit people in any blank space on our calendar. And before you know it, that becomes overwhelming.
For sure.
Thinking about where will you see clients, right? And what do you need to have in place in order to see clients in that location? So for example, if you're doing telehealth, you need a HIPAA compliant platform, right? And so what is that going to be? Identifying that and acquiring that. If you decide that you want to see people in person, again, where are you going to do that? And what do you need to have in place? So maybe it's starting by renting an office space, maybe hourly if you're just starting out. You might need a lease agreement, right? You might also need a type of insurance, you know, to be in that space. So getting those things in place, depending upon where you're going to be seeing your clients. And then finally, how, right? How are clients going to know that you exist, that you're available to see them, right? So this is basically marketing, right? And we don't always like to think of it that way, or we don't think of it that way, but that's essentially it. How do clients know that you're available and that you exist? Because we're in this world, again, going back to that scarcity mindset, a lot of times we think like, oh my gosh, are they going to choose me? You know, are there enough clients to go around? And the real issue is, do people know that you're out there? Because when I talk to people that aren't from this therapy world, really maybe are not familiar with therapy, but are wanting to try it, the first thing they always say is like, how do I find a therapist? Where do I find somebody? How do I go about that? And so really figuring out how you're going to let people know that you're available and that your services exist, and then how they're going to contact you, right? So do you want people to contact you by email, by phone, or some other means, and having that set up? How will you enroll them or schedule them, right? So once they reach out and they found you and I want to see you, how do I schedule a consultation, or how do I schedule my first session? Figuring out how you're going to do that. What is your calendar system, right? What is your process? Are you just going to take calls and then schedule people, or are you going to do that consultation call beforehand to figure out if they're the right fit for you? So thinking about how you want to proceed with that. And then again, how you'll keep track of your sessions. And so all of these things relate to systems, right? How are you scheduling? How are you documenting the sessions? Where are you keeping those notes? And so forth. So I think also, I know that's a lot to digest. So take a moment.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed by this podcast, take it in doses.
Yes, just take a pause. You can come back to it. But I think it's really important to remember that when you're building or growing your private practice, focus on having a sturdy foundation and a few systems in place that you can continue to build on. It does not have to be perfect out the gate. It will not be perfect out the gate, and that is okay. As long as you have a sturdy foundation, you can pivot as you need to. You can add on, you can take away as you continue to grow and develop your business. And then also get support and information from trusted and reliable sources. There's a lot of information out there.
I like that you highlight reliable.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes that takes a little homework on your part to figure out who that is, right? So looking at whether the people in your support system or the coaches that you're talking to or the other people that you're relying on, are they walking the talk, right? Are they doing what they're talking to you about doing? Also, do they have a good reputation when it comes to what they're helping you with, right? The information that they're providing, but also their outcomes. And be willing to invest in yourself and your business to help fast track you so you don't have to learn everything the hard way over years and years. You know, I talked to a lot of people recently who are like, I've gotten all the free stuff and I'm really overwhelmed because, you know, initially we think everything that's free is great. I'm going to use this. I don't have to pay for anything. But it starts to gets overwhelming. Just the amount of resources available to us sometimes can be really overwhelming. And then we don't end up using any of it. And then we're right where we started, right? It's like, well, I have all of this, but I don't have the time and I don't have the energy. And oh my gosh, there's so much information. And I still don't know where to get started. And I'm still in the same position. So not being afraid to invest. And I'd just like to stress that word. It really is an investment. Right? The idea is that you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your business, and you're going to see that return down the line, right? Don't be afraid to invest in yourself so that you can get on track and start building, I always like to say designing, the practice of your dreams.
Awesome. Good stuff. So Kim definitely threw a lot at you, but she's started and finished with investing in yourself and really having a support system, whether it's, your coach or mentor, but also your familial and partner, spouse support system. Talked about tightening up the foundation, really knowing your numbers. And that's personal numbers as well as business numbers. And she then talked about the 5 W's and finished it again off with really invest in yourself. And hey, I mean, there's no other place that you can invest in coaching and write it off. I mean, if you're not a business owner, you can't write it off. So it is an investment and it's a write-off. So what do you want people to take most away from your message today, Kim?
I think I would say pause, take a deep breath. You can do this. You definitely can do this. You do not have to do all the things at once. It does not have to be perfect. You just need a few essentials to help you get started. And I think the biggest thing is getting started. Trusting yourself, trusting the process, trusting that if you don't have what you need right now, you can find it or it will find you, and that you can do this. You can definitely do this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, talking about avoiding the overwhelm of building and growing your private practice. And you can definitely find out more about Kim on her own website at Kimberly Bonds Grocer, or you can find her on our website at theprivatepracticestartup.com. Not really sure why website's a difficult word for me in this last part of the podcast, but I don't know. And we'll also put in the show notes the things that we discussed, talking about Dave Frank, the financial advisor, Andrew Risen from her, the accountant that serves therapists, as well as Julie Harris from Green Oak Accounting. I know Kim had also mentioned some electronic health records, our peak package of paperwork. So we will all go ahead and put that in the show notes as well, so you can access them. We hope you have an awesome day. Thank you for being here with us. We would love to know how these podcasts are working for you. So you can subscribe, but also rate our podcast, whether it's on Google, you can look for Private Practice Startup. You can rate it right on wherever you like to listen to podcasts, right? Do a podcast review on iTunes or Stitcher or any of those places. And we're always open to the possibility of having new guests and new topics. This podcast is for you. It's designed for you and to serve you. So we are here to serve you. So we always love to know what it is that you're looking for. Well, we will see you all next time. Have an awesome, inspired day, everybody. In the meantime, take care.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.